Good evening, everybody. From today onwards, I am starting a new format, a simple question and an answer. Many curiosities from our ancient history and even medieval history go unanswered. People either don't know the adequate one or people keep on twirling around what they know. But rarely you will be answered up to the point. So from here on, I take this opportunity to try to answer things that you often have questions about. So from here on, I'll try to answer frequently asked questions from my YouTube channel or elsewhere. So today's question is, why didn't Arab invasions succeed in India? And contrarily, why Central Asians like Mahmud Ghazni, Ghori, etc. succeeded to invade India? So this is a two-pronged question and it's a pretty decent one, which is asking about two separate times and two separate sort of invasions that India suffered in the past 1200 years. One from the Arab side that took place starting from Muhammad bin Qasim's invasion of Sindh in 712 CE, and then the Turkic invasions which start from Sebuktigin, Mahmud Ghazni, and then when Ghurids finally succeed in destroying a few of Indian dynasties and overtake control of Delhi and few surrounding regions, that gives birth to Delhi Sultanate, which changes Indian history forever and puts India in a position that India had never suffered before. So, first of all, about the Arab caliphates. The very important question is, why couldn't the Arabs defeat India? Even though the Arabs who invaded in were not ordinary soldiers. They were the soldiers of Umayyad Khilafat, the glorious Islamic Umayyad Caliphate that expanded the Islamic boundaries starting from the regions of central Saudi and ended up conquering modern day Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Oman, Yemen, regions as far as Egypt. So, how come they could not come and defeat the Rajput kingdoms? And how come a few Normads, starting from let's say 1000 CE, end up defeating a lot of the Rajput dynasties, which ends up a slave dynasty of the Mamluks ruling India in the 12th century? So, first of all, we have to understand the major difference was one, the Arabs were never a fighting force. They did do very well adding up religious zeal with the idea of a caliphate or an empire, which ended up helping them to expand to all the regions to which they could reach. It could not succeed in India because at that time a very strong Rajput leadership was holding the northwestern front of India, which were the disintegrated Gurjara Pratihar kingdoms, which gave India a structure of feudalism, but at the same time. So we have to keep in mind, at the time of the Arab invasions, right after Muhammad bin Qasim conquers Sindh, which was being ruled by Brahman Chach dynasty of Arom, right at the moment, the Rajputana kingdoms realized one very important thing, that though the Rajput kingdoms which were disintegrated from Gurjara Pratihar may have been individual kingdoms in their own right, but they knew they were the first and the last defense in the line of Hindu civilization. And knowing this, they knew that they had to defeat any form of religious invasions that took place. Right after Muhammad bin Qasim's death, the Caliphate tried to invade India once again. The Umayyad Caliphate, the one known to conquer all the Gulf regions of today and conquering as far as today's Sindh. But somehow the unity concretized by Maharana Bappa Rawat and a united front of northwestern India of Rajputs ended up defeating the Arabs to the point where Umayyads were disintegrated pretty soon after in the 740s and 750s once Maharana Bappa Rawal ended their invasion. Now, contrarily, when you look at the Central Asians, They were far superior fighters, far more dangerous and lethal warriors. When you look at any nomadic tribe which finds it hard to live, which finds it hard to manage resources to survive, you will always see a ferocious kind of nature, which you will not see amongst traders or a people of a more city dwelling people. And when the Central Asians were converted to a new Arabic faith, the new religious zeal which united them to conquer more, they knew no boundaries, nothing stopped them. They knew one thing, that any land which was prosperous and followed any other faith was ripe for their invasion, which they did when Ghaznavid invasions started to take place. Now, surprisingly, even Ghaznavid invasions were not as successful as many books will tell you. Yes, they did manage to conquer a few portions in Gujarat. Yes, very unfortunately and sadly, he was able to destroy Somnath temple just so he could insult Hindus and destroy the idolatry that he hated so much because of the newly formed faith he believed in. But his invasions were never so successful as to actually conquer Indian lands, and he only ended up consolidating Afghan lands and a few portions of Pakistan up to Peshawar. But soon after that, when Ghorid invasions take place and a further disintegrated Rajputana is faced, one thing Muhammad Ghori realized was that a chance of infighting of the Rajputana kingdom, and two, and the second and the biggest reason was, of course, the cavalries. The horses that the Central Asians possessed were far more in number and far superior in quality. And this was such a leap in military tactics of its times that people from this day and age might not even be able to grasp it. You may always think of historic battles fought on horses, but it wasn't a reality. Most of the dramatic sequences you see in films and shows are only a recreation of those times from imagination of today's directors. But when you actually go down and read, you realize that before 10th to 12th century, cavalries were not a normal form of military. They were just used by the privileged generals to lead their infantries. But for the first time, you could see people in tens and thousands of numbers with horses running in a direction to destroy a certain people. I know you must be thinking, well, whenever we have seen history from Gladiator to 300 to any other movie, we always somewhere saw horses. But how come? Well, again, horses were not as big as they are today. Horses used to be a lot smaller in sizes. The original Mongolian horses were not taller than 5 feet of height from toe to the head. But after a lot of breeding with different new breeds from different lands, over a time of 2 to 3 thousands of years, humans have finally evolved the horses in their faith. But before that, horses used to be tinier, harder to use for battle. But right about 1000 years back, right about that time when Ghaznavid invasion started taking place, horses became a lot more common, especially amongst the steppes and the long grasslands that Central Asians possessed. With the new religious zeal and the idea of military conquest of a rich nation like India, a glorious civilization that was looked as land of the high people for nearly every other civilization, a few nomadic tribes of a new Arabic faith with the idea of looting and conquering a nation of idolaters started taking place. At that time, when Muhammad Ghori started to defeat Prithviraj Chauhan in the second battle of Tarain, that was the time when Indians realized that the clouds were only getting darker, because from here on, people of the Central Asian lands will keep on coming in bigger and more dangerous numbers. And the divided Rajputana front was never able to actually succeed in completely destroying any of the Central Asian hordes. So the resistance of the Rajputana always remained, but once Prithviraj Chauhan's clan was destroyed, no Rajputana clan could ever manage to grasp hold on to Delhi ever again, up until 500 years later, when Marathas finally succeed in doing so in mid 1700s, right before the Battle of Panipat.